I'm 6 years old, and all I can think about is getting the pink Barbie Corvette. I need $5 more. Luckily for me, it's Easter, and I know that my dad always hides one coveted $5 egg. I also know the best egg is the hardest to find. This year, I'm ready. Before long, I spot it right in the middle of my sweet 70s swing set pole. You know, the one that runs along the entire top of the set. I scramble to get the ladder and the yardstick and duct tape it to a broom handle. I fish it into the pipe and I shove that egg hard. It flies out the other side, and by the time it hits the ground, I'm waiting above it like an expectant father. The egg cracks open, and inside is the very opposite of my grand prize. Instead, a perfectly formed dog turd rolls out. I burst into loud hysterics. At the same time, my father explodes with laughter. I run as fast as I can to my room, but he's not far behind.
It's time for one of his talks.
Honey, it was clear that you already learned the important life lesson. The harder you work, the better the payoff. So, it was time that you learn another valuable lesson. Sometimes, no matter how hard you work, you just end up with shit. And who better to teach just this sort of hard-hitting, direct, and painful life lesson to 6-year-old me than my father? I'm a divorce attorney. I've been practicing for over 20 years. I began in Los Angeles, but I've owned my firm in Nevada since 2001. My firm has a particular subspecialty, men's rights. My 9 female employees and I specifically represent men in divorce and custody battles. And guess who runs the business end of my law firm? My father. In my practice, we've represented over 2,000 men, 650 of whom are fathers. My expertise not only comes from my career, but just as much from my personal life. I'm a mother. My children are 23, 15, 12, and barely 3. They come from 2 different mothers and 3 different fathers. Hooker. Let me explain. I helped my ex-husband raise our 23-year-old son, whom I didn't birth, from age 5. I share custody of my 15-year-old daughter with the same father. My 12-year-old son sadly lost his father to suicide when he was just 7, and my 3-year-old is being raised at home with his father and me. I literally live my work every day. So, what has 20 years of representing men in family law while living my own reality show as a wife, mother, and daughter taught me about fatherhood? Allow me, if you will, to start with the second thing I learned about fatherhood. Men parent differently than women, big surprise. But their influence is crucial in the development of their children. Do you know any mom in the world who would put dog shit in an Easter egg? Okay, maybe that's a good thing. Let me better demonstrate this point from my legal experience. When getting my father clients ready for court, I prepare them for this kind of interrogation. Who's your children's doctor or dentist? What's the name of your school principal or even their teacher? What grades did they get on their last report card? 9 times out of 10, they miss the majority of these questions. Seriously, does this mean they don't care or love their children as much? I bet it makes you wonder. But please hold your judgment. Here are the questions that my father clients can easily answer. If your son could be a superhero, what would his power be? What kind of monsters do your kids fear? How high does your daughter feel comfortable flying in a swing? What makes your son feel defeated? Yet, in my experience cross-examining hundreds of mothers in family court, these are the harder questions for them. Most of us know motherhood brings with it a sixth sense and an unspoken bond to our children. But what about fathers? Even fathers feel insecure about this reality. After representing 650 fathers, I can count on one hand those that felt secure in their instinctive role and significance to their children. What's interesting is my anecdotal legal experience suggests otherwise. In 20 years of practice, I've had over 100 men take a paternity test, like Jerry Springer. Seriously, do you know how many were wrong in predicting their biological relation to the child? 2. This shocked me and taught me my third lesson. Fathers, too, have a genetic bond and instinct about their children from infancy. Forget where you are for a moment, seriously, and close your eyes. I'd like to ask you to feel. Think about your childhood. Picture your father, his smiling eyes, his strong hands. Hear his deep voice. What did you love about your dad? Did he throw you high into the air? Teach you to ride a bike? Carry you home when you got hurt? Push you when you tried to give up? What did it feel like to have a daddy? Secure, fun, challenging. Now, go back in your memories and erase your father from every scene. This is what the other 40% of people's childhoods look like. Just under half the people listening to me, including my own 12-year-old son, felt sad, angry, or blank during the peak of your joy while playing along. Eye-opening, isn't it? Nearly 2 of every 5 children in America are growing up without their fathers, or 17 million, according to the 2016 census. Other sources estimate as many as 30 million. In 2011, I joined the board for a local charity called Nevada Youth Empowerment Project, or NYEP. NYEP is a housing program for homeless girls ages 18 to 24. As board president of this small charity, I've been closely involved and gotten to know the girls and their tragic stories over the years. Hundreds of otherwise homeless girls have come through our program. Their backgrounds and what they have endured would haunt you. Do you know the one thing all of these girls have in common? They all come from fatherless homes. Sadly, these girls aren't the exception. They're the rule.
Well, the West Virginia Supreme Court has released a series of short videos with hopes it will help people involved in domestic violence cases better understand the process. Now, 2 years ago, the Supreme Court said there were more than 13,000 emergency protective orders filed in magistrate courts across the state, making up more than 25% of total filings. In family court, the numbers are even higher, with domestic violence cases making up 44% of total filings.
How is it that a lawyer counseling me, giving me legal advice to stage domestic violence so I get the upper hand in family court? My name is Heidi Nabert. The truth is, at least from our experience, is you could go into the same lawyer's office and you'd get a totally different set of questions and answers based on whether you're a man or a woman.
Really?
Yes. When I first considered divorcing my first husband, I got 30 minutes free with a lawyer. And I said, look, I don't know anything about the law. You know, we own a house and a couple of cars and some furniture and a couple of investments. If I leave, do I lose any of that? That was my question. And the lawyer said to me, why are you leaving? And I said, well, because I'm the one that's unhappy. My husband will not do, he won't consider going into marriage counseling. And so I'm ready to move on. And he said, you don't have to leave. Just get him to hit you or make it look like he did. And we can have him forcibly removed from the house, get you exclusive possession of the matrimonial home, and spousal support. How is it that a lawyer who is bound by some sort of ethical protocol counseling me, giving me legal advice to stage domestic violence so I get the upper hand in family court, call 911, say, I'm scared, I think he's going to hurt me. And in most jurisdictions these days, it's called zero tolerance. The police will be coming to the door and he'll be out in handcuffs. And our kids are watching that. That's the beginning of a downward spiral, both emotionally and financially for that family. And you want to screw up your kids? That's a perfect way to start.
This is where the horror begins. This is the entrance to the Suffolk County Family Court and Supreme Court building. Everybody going in here is in for a bunch of misery. They're in for a world of hurt. They're in for destruction of their families, and we're going to talk to them as they come out. You'll look at everybody's face as they go in. Most of the people aren't going to be smiling. That's because nothing good comes out of this building. Many people have been coming here for 5, 10, some even 15 years, every single month, taking off from work, taking time out of their day to come here into this hellhole. This is the entrance to hell. Hi, how are you? Gary Jacobs. I'm with Long Island Backstory, and we're doing a story on the horrors of family court. What's your name?
I'm Isaac McNair.
And what were you here for today, Isaac?
You know, me and my wife was going through some troubles. You know, we just got divorced or whatnot. You know, it was a real heartbreak. You know, it cost me a lot of money, you know, a lot of pain, you know. But, you know, that's the way the system is, you know.
Since you've been going, how much would you say this has cost you? And between your attorney's fees, your ex-wife's attorney fees, forensics, law guardians, how much would you say you spent in this courthouse?
I'd say about $80,000, $90,000, possibly even more. I'm 68 years old. I'll be 69 years old, and I do not feel that they're treating me in any way, shape, or form as a parent or as a human being.
What's your name?
Chris.
Chris, and what were you here for today in family court?
Modification of child support.
I'm assuming that you're not here to modify it in an upward manner.
Yeah, no.
And why do you need to modify it? Is this something that you agreed to originally, or was this something that was ordered by the court?
Something that was ordered by the court on their behalf.
Okay, on their behalf?
Yeah.
And how long have you been paying?
Over a year.
Okay.
And now I'm trying to modify it, you know, disabled, collecting disability, they're taking 75% of it.
Wow, so you're left with 25% of your disability to live on.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Do you feel like as a father, you were treated fairly today in the courthouse?
Absolutely not.
And did you feel like that at the beginning, or is this just because now that you're going in for the downward modification that you feel like they're not being fair to you?
It's the whole time. It's all about the women. It's a women's court. You know, it's a women's world in the courthouse.
And how did it go today with the downward modification?
Just as I expected. Fill out these papers, have them served, come back.
And were you here with an attorney today, or were you representing yourself?
Representing myself. Can't afford an attorney.
I was going to say, left with 25% of your disability, there can't be much left to deal with. What about your ex-wife? Did she come in with an attorney, or did the child support unit help her try to get the money from you?
Child support unit helps.
Did you ever ask them for help in defending yourself, or you just here on your own?
I've asked for public assistance, you know, the public defender, but being that they're taking me to court, I'm not entitled to it.
Wow, so she's on their behalf. They're fighting to get the money from you. So actually, the taxpayer is paying to have her keep you paying more money that you can't afford.
Pretty much.
Now, let me ask this: with this amount, I'm sure it's hard to live on. What happens if you can't keep up with this amount? You know, them taking 75%. How are you supposed to live?
I have no idea.
So thank you for having me. You have 3 minutes, and please proceed, and we're glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm here today to speak to you in reference to family court. Along with millions of other parents in this state and across the country, I too have personally had the unfortunate privilege of becoming intimately aware of the comings and goings of the family court judiciary. I can attest firsthand that there is not a single article of the United States Constitution that is not routinely violated in family court. It is a court where both I and millions of parents like me, as well as our children, are routinely subjected to egregious violations of our civil rights. I had my 11-month-old baby boy kidnapped and abducted from me by unjustifiable and unconstitutional state intervention, despite the fact that I had never committed or been convicted of any crime or abuse. I was afforded no presumption of innocence, no trial, no chance to face my accusers. The family court commissioner was my judge, jury, and executioner. I was categorically denied due process. So why are family courts throughout this state and this country separating children from perfectly loving, fit, and capable fathers without due process? What's driving all of it? Our government has financially incentivized the kidnapping and trafficking of children for profit through Title 4D of the Social Security Act, otherwise known as child support. Shocked and stupefied are not strong enough terms to describe my state of mind when I found out that the entire judiciary in California, including this council, are under contract with the executive branch agencies to help assist with enforcing Title 4D in exchange for federal incentive funds. Article 3, Section 3 of the California State Constitution states that the powers of state government are legislative, executive, and judicial. Persons charged with the exercise of one power may not exercise either of the others. According to the California Code of Judicial Ethics, a judge needs to uphold the integrity and independence of the judiciary. In what way, shape, or form could any of you sit here with a straight face and maintain that the judiciary is independent or impartial when you've crawled into bed with the executive branch in exchange for money? This is nothing short of state-sponsored abduction and trafficking of our children for profit. Worst of all, this corruption is committed under the guise that it's all done in the best interest of our children. Well, I got a news flash for everyone in this room today. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes, 32 times the average. 85% of all children who show behavior disorders come from fatherless homes, 20 times the average. 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes, 14 times the average. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes, 9 times the average. So when the family courts tell us that you're taking our children away from fathers and driving those fathers into poverty through the racketeering and extortion activities of Title IV-D, that it's all done in our child's best interest, excuse me when I say I don't know what the hell any of you are talking about. I'd like to leave you guys with a quote. The state must declare the child to be the most precious treasure of the people. As long as the government is perceived as working for the benefit of the children, the people will happily endure almost any curtailment of liberty and almost any deprivation. Adolf Hitler. Thank you.
My fourth lesson about fatherhood came from the data. According to the Center for Disease Control, children from fatherless homes account for 90% of all homeless and runaway kids, 71% of high school dropouts, and 63% of youth suicides. While you listen to me speak, you have to be wondering, what makes fathers so crucial? Honestly, the answer is complex and better explored by psychologists. What I can tell you is that the data unequivocally tells us fathers are vital, and yet laws and society undervalue their importance, making it harder for them to be in their children's lives. Even fathers underrate their own value. I know this data upsets a lot of mothers, me included. But advocating for fathers isn't about diminishing mothers. While children deserve both parents whenever possible, this crisis is specific to fathers. The occurrence of fatherlessness is epidemic. The effects are catastrophic, and the causes are male gender specific. Nearly 30 years ago, leading child psychologist Michael Lamb reminded us, fathers are the forgotten contributors to child development. Yet, researchers have found that children with involved fathers have stronger cognitive and motor skills, elevated physical and mental health, become better problem solvers, and are more confident, curious, and empathetic. Sadly, we've had this data for 30 years, and fatherlessness has only continued to rise during this time. The main contributors to fatherlessness are divorce and out-of-wedlock births. Every 13 seconds, someone in America gets divorced. That equates to almost 2.5 million divorces a year. Lucky me. Currently, more than 40%, or 1.5 million babies, are born out of wedlock each year in the US. And this brings me back to the first and most significant thing that my career has taught me about fatherhood. Family court is one of the critical places where fathers are disadvantaged, and this hurts kids. Historically, this maternal preference was solidified in the tender years doctrine, which mandated custody of children under age 4 be awarded to mothers. This doctrine was in use until the 80s. As the laws progressed, visitation for fathers improved, but it took a lot of years before the law was finally gender equal. In fact, it wasn't until 2017 that Nevada finally adopted a presumption for joint physical custody. When I began my practice, and until 10 years ago, the best my father clients could expect was every other weekend visitation and maybe a dinner on the off week. While significant legal progress has been made, this long-standing bias against fathers still occurs in the enforcement of custody orders, in child support rulings, and it exists in paternity laws. All the while, the number of kids growing up without dads continues to rise. Between 1960 and 2016, the percentage of children growing up with just mothers nearly tripled, from 8 to 23%. Paternity laws desperately need more reform to protect the 40% of children born out of wedlock each year in the US. Right now, once custody has been ordered, it's illegal to remove a child from their father, usually a felony. But it's perfectly legal in all 50 states for a woman to conceal her pregnancy, leave the father's name off the birth certificate, and never tell him he has a child, ever. How is this not kidnapping? Just as horrible, a woman can knowingly list the wrong father on a child's birth certificate, deceive him, and a short while later, in many states, the wrong man becomes that child's legal father forever. He's obligated to a child that isn't his, and that child just lost their real father with little to no recourse. This is a betrayal of the worst kind. And the law not only allows it, it creates the opportunity. This is what we know. Every bit of data we have tells us children need their fathers. The law, its application, and society at large disfavor fathers. The law is improving, but the statistics are not. So, what can you do? We are the change makers, all of us. If you're a father, make the effort. Do everything you can to be in your children's daily lives. If you're a mother, encourage and facilitate the relationship between your children and their father instead of trying to interfere or control it. If you're a child, spend time with your dad. Ask him to do something. Seek his advice and guidance. If you're an employer, grant the fathers you employ the ability to be at their children's events, to help in their schools, to take sick days to care for their kids. If you work in the legal field, help us continue to progress, change the laws, and ensure that they're enforced to protect fathers and their children. The importance of this pursuit cannot be overstated. The fate of nearly half of America's children depends on it. I'd like to close by asking all of you to do one final thing. Please stand if you are able, or raise your hand. I'm serious, please. If you grew up without a father, if you raised or raising a child without a father, or if you were a father who's been separated from your child. Now, look around. The people really affected by fatherlessness. Really, look. Those of you standing and raising your hands aren't numbers. You're real, living, and feeling humans. You're the children scarred by fatherlessness. Now let me tell you who can't stand. The 1,000 fatherless children who were murdered last year. The 3,000 fatherless children who died from drugs. The 3,200 fatherless children who committed suicide last year. And the 14,000 fatherless children who were incarcerated. Everyone, please stand for them and do everything you can to help the remaining 17 million fatherless children avoid these fates. Thank you.